Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. This is the cold off season episode 52. And if you're a first time listener, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast gives a fan's perspective on IndyCar and other forms of motorsports. Before I get started, I want to introduce you to my co host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Daniel.
How are you?
I am good this evening. How are
you
you?
Good because you were eating a cupcake? What was that? Was that like a birthday cake cupcake?
It was
Had
for
the
my
little speckles
mother-in-law's
in it?
party on Friday, and there
Those
were
are
two
old
left,
cupcakes.
so I
I'm gonna be
grabbed
going
one.
to
This
get
one
there.
didn't have frosting, but
I know it's
I
weird.
took care of it. It was good. It was homemade cupcakes, right? You don't go out and buy cupcakes, do you? There's the wrapper.
Yeah, we buy cupcakes. There's some place in Rochester we buy cupcakes, and they're amazing. They're like little
That's
cakes.
nowhere near you.
So what? What does that have to do anything?
It's a long
Tim's
drive
never,
for
for the
cupcakes.
listeners, Tim's never heard of the automobile. He feels like you should just traverse the little city in which you reside. And then anything outside of that is just too tiring.
That is true. Talk about traversing. You traversed all the way to my neighborhood this weekend, which was
an hour and 5 minutes north of where I live to go run a cold and snowy 5K with some friends of mine from the cycling club. That's another podcast we can get into probably to talk about that. But yeah, I had a good time. It was great to see you.
Yeah,
I was very surprised to see you sitting in your car with your number already pinned on you, all ready to go.
I know. I told you there's no way I was running that. I was just going to come and root you on, and then I
was
decided
totally
to
fine.
sign up. And I signed up, and I went for it. So it was a good time. It was good to see everybody. It's been a while since I've seen the crew, and they were all there. And then, man, the outpouring of love I got on Strava was something I don't normally see. So I think people had missed my post. So it was all the way around.
Strava told us to go be nice to Timmy. So
yeah, they said he hasn't done anything in like 6 months. You might as well give him some kudos, right?
That's right. Tim, this is the cold off season. Like I said, episode 52. Cold because the IndyCar faithful are starting to turn on the series. More on that now. There is a lot of news in IndyCar, around IndyCar. Not all good. I guess the question is there any good? Maybe, but let's get into that.
Yeah, I don't know if there is anything good. So right? you're gonna break it down for us. But yeah, there's been a lot of upset fans and a lot of things going on that don't seem awesome.
They just feel like, well, I don't know why we're
I can think of one thing that's awesome, but I'm not going to talk about it yet.
Okay. IndyCar. I like the tease, Timmy. Good job. IndyCar put on hold plans to increase the engine displacement. If you recall, IndyCar had planned to put on a new engine platform with their engine partners, Chevy and Honda, when they went to electrification in 2024, which was, of course, delayed because of the pandemic and because of ensuing supply chain problems. But the series was going to go from a 2.2, which is what they are today, to a 2.4 to allow a little bit more horsepower, as well as more horsepower added with the electrification, is what I'm going to keep calling it. I'm sure it's a hybrid system, right? We already know that.
You talk about a little more horsepower, but you're talking about
like 100.
300 is my understanding. It was going from 700 to 1,000 with the new displacement plus.
I think that was the wishful thinking. Was the 700 to 1,000. So we're going to get there, but let's face it, at that time, this chassis will be 12 years old. I don't think you can put 1,000 horsepower into that thing without it turning to dust down the back straight of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But apparently there were some issues with the development of this hybrid system. And I'm just reading between the lines. I could be wrong. We do have some listeners from Indianapolis and around the series. And I would love to hear from you on this via Twitter or our email or whatever it is. And all that stuff is found in the show notes. But it sounds to me like the series was putting a little bit more pressure on Honda and Chevrolet to further develop this hybrid system.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, Chevy and Honda said, can't do it. Either we're going to stay with the current engine platform and we'll help develop this hybrid module or right, this move to hybrid, or right, you can have a new engine, but we're not going to help you with the hybrid. So Marshall Pruitt's article on racer.com, of course, had some juicy tidbits in there, and I'll just give you a few of those. Starting with the first one, which was my absolute favorite. It seemed that the captain, Roger Penske, was a little pissed at Marshall Pruitt for some of the quotes. And I imagine in particular this quote, where David Salters of Honda Performance Development said, "It's not the job of the OEM to build the series. They're here to promote through the series, but not to build it." I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah.
Which, Tim, he's 100% right.
No, absolutely. I think you're right on. Like it's really for them to promote their vehicles and their engine development and work on their R&D, right? So it's really not for them to make the series and make it be what it is. So obviously it's a joint, if you will, venture between Honda, Chevy, and the series. And there was all this talk about adding a third OEM, which never happened. And so, I think if you get, and from what I read and from what I was looking at, it was, we're only committing to 10 to 12 engines, with the new platform. And if you don't have a third OEM, you can't get everybody an engine in the series. So at that point, it was failing. And I'm wondering how long it was failing with discussions and going, you know, IndyCar pushing on them to say, no, you got to develop more, then pushing back, say, we can't. And at the end of the day, they had to, sort of meet in the middle and go, okay, well, we're going to have to just rely on what we have today. And then we'll work on the electrification, as you call it. So, it was, I think this all sort of came about because they didn't land a third OEM to participate and they weren't going to have enough engines. The other thing that I found very interesting, though, was that Honda actually put an engine on track.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, and maybe they did without the hybrid system. Chevy would put it on track, I think, little ways back, but Honda was the only one that came out with the engine, I think, and the hybrid system at the same time to test that. And General Motors never did at that time.
Right. I think Dixon was out on track, right, with the
Hmm.
new engine and the hybrid attached to it as well. Surely you would believe that Chevrolet, through their partners Ilmor, um, would have had at least a bench test of that new engine going on by now, especially if it was going to happen in 2024. You would think, right?
I would think
Um,
so.
I guess so. You mentioned the third OEM, right? We talk a lot about the third OEM, which was in Chef Brian's Twitter poll. I don't think the OEM was the more popular choice, right? Wasn't it the new chassis?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So anyway, to me, the third OEM and a new chassis is kind of like 1A, 1B, take your pick. Okay. But just talking about the new engine or a new engine partner, I think that's one of the most ideal situations you could have in this series because Chevy and Honda have done a lot of heavy lifting and they've done heavy lifting for a long time and have
Hmm.
been very dedicated to this series and have done an incredible job in being able to support the series at the level that they have been supporting it and they seemingly will continue to support it. But asking them to throw more money at this development situation that just doesn't make sense for them necessarily, or they just don't feel like the return is there either in being able to promote it and talk to it to potential customers or being able to take that development technology and being able to translate it into the road cars that you and I drive. There's some
Hmm.
reason why they were reluctant to do that because this is all a marketing exercise, right? Honda doesn't make any money on these engines. Chevy doesn't make any money on these engines. That's what this is. This is a marketing exercise for Chevy and Honda to market and promote through the series and to
Yep.
celebrate the series in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Um, so it kind of leads me to this question. I had actually two questions based on today's just sort of news. So it was confirmed today that Mali is providing this hybrid system, MAHLE. You might recognize that because it's a prominent feature on the nose of the Ferrari F1 car. You and I see this around because there's a building right off of I-75 in Rochester that has this name on it as well.
All right. We're back in
So
Rochester. Yeah.
yeah, back in Rochester. So I took my horse and buggy. But it begs the question, what was their role? Are they just providing hardware? And it was that was the intent all along, was that Molly would provide this hardware, provide, backups and whatever else that needs to be done, and say, here, it's up to Honda and Chevy to figure out how this integrates into the internal combustion system, right?
Yeah.
Internal combustion, how it works with the
Hmm.
internal combustion engine. I guess that's the question, right?
I would think so. Yeah. That's kind of how all the pieces of the puzzle come together and how it all sort of comes together and how much work is, really reliant on the OEM versus this other manufacturer, right? Molly, as you mentioned, and what they're doing to help promote. And then what does the engine manufacturer need to do in order to accommodate this additional power going through the system, if you will, right? How it's
Yep.
all interconnected. There's got to be work that has to be done. And I think maybe taking on both at the same time was a little too much effort. And then I think at the end of the day, it came down to we're just not going to have enough engines to power every single vehicle that you have lined up for the series.
They refused, right, to provide that. And again, I can't blame them. I don't have any problems with that. They just refused. Hey, we can't provide that many engines. You would have a series of 20 cars again, or 16 cars again,
Hmm.
right? And that's not ideal for anybody, because there's more seats than that currently available. So who goes away and where do they go?
Yeah.
How do you decide?
And I think that's where it's critical. You got to bring in a third OEM.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's just, just the way economics work in today's world. And, with what's going on with inflation and everything else, they're like, you know what, we can't do this. We can't
Yeah.
sustain what you're trying to do at this point. So you back out of it. It's really, in
But
my
is that
opinion,
true? I'm going to put a pin in that. Is that true?
what I
Because I
hear
want to ask you
everywhere I
this
go.
question, and then we're going to segue, right,
Right.
into whether or not that's true. The intent of the electrification, which was going to give 100 more horsepower on top of this proposed larger engine, which was going to give us more horsepower there too. The intent of the electrification, or the hybridization of this engine, is likely lost. Wouldn't you think, Tim? Because now you're adding more componentry onto an already heavy chassis. And so I'm not an engineer. I don't do physics. I'm a soda pop salesman. I right, this is what I do full time.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
I don't know how you gain speed or gain what it is that they hope to accomplish by making the cars faster and making them louder, or making them more appealing from that perspective, if you're
Yeah, I
just
think
adding weight.
like I I I would say that it is offsetting. I think it's definitely going to be offsetting for the vehicle, but it does bring new technology into the series, which is something I think you and I have harped on, and I think other people have. That said, you know what, the series has always been about, technology advancements and things that are going on, and it's been stale for the last 10, 12 years, whatever it's been. And so from that aspect, it's exciting that it's coming, I believe. But at the same time, it's not going to show, I don't think, any more performance on the track, right? You're not going to see higher speeds. You're not going to see, people getting out of corners faster, whatever it might be. They're going to still be a little sluggish just because you're in an old chassis that is very heavy, especially with the aero screen that they added to it.
They
S-
bulked it up too, right? I mean, in the name of safety, you can't fault them for doing any of that stuff, but you're adding more pieces in the name of safety, which is more weight to a chassis that's already 10 years old.
Mhm. Yeah,
So you mentioned inflation, which is real,
it
right?
is real. Yeah.
Um, these things are real. It costs us more to do just about everything these days.
And
It
before you
certainly it certainly
okay, go
costs
ahead.
these OEMs more money to do whatever it is that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is the spec part of IndyCar, right, which has its
Mhm.
appeal, but is that appeal lost on any OEM who would consider joining the series as a engine manufacturer?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. That it's a spec series from an OEM perspective, because then it's raw engine against engine, right? And so then you can show your engineering prowess and go, you know what, we are the best because we do have the biggest engine. We'll call it most output out of the engine for that particular vehicle. So it's almost evens it out for the OEMs. So I don't see that as a deterrent. Is it? It's not sexy, right? It's kind of like, so I think that could be a deterrent. But at the end of the day, if you're on an oval and you get fuel mileage plus you have additional horsepower and you're quicker, it's really going to shine. You're really going to see that shine through a race. And then that's where you could potentially dominate a series based on just the engine because everybody's running the same chassis. So I don't think it's a deterrent.
I do. Here's why. I'm going to give you 6 reasons.
6 reasons. All right,
Yeah.
let's go.
Porsche, Lamborghini, Cadillac, Acura, BMW, and Alpine. Now say it. What the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about, Dan?
All of these manufacturers are producing, either through partners or whatever, directly, partners are producing new engine platforms with hybrid systems in the IMSA series, in the new LMDH category.
You're right. That series is blown up. It's been
It is
amazing.
not a spec series. It's not a spec engine. It's open for development. The rules for this class were announced after, I believe, IndyCar announced their intention to go to a bigger engine and add the hybrid components. And they're not getting there. But yet IMSA is able to get there with these 6 manufacturers in the top series. Where you and I were there. You and I have been there a couple of times, right? Or I've been there a couple of times. It was Cadillac and Acura, right? At the top end of it.
Yep.
And now you have 6 manufacturers. Alpine and Lamborghini are gonna join in 24. But when they line up for the Daytona 24 in 24, you're gonna have 6 brand new engines and basically, right, chassis tweaks to customer chassis through major manufacturers. Cadillac, if you're listening to this, you already know, right? That's the sister company to Chevrolet. It's all under General Motors. Acura, sister company to Honda. They're able to do it. What I don't know and what I would love to know, and I don't know who we could ask, is what makes, because the LMDH engine is a stressed member. It's part of the chassis, right? You have components and you have suspension that is bolted to the engine technically, similar to what an IndyCar is. So I don't know what the major differences are between an IndyCar engine and one of these LMDH engines, and why that formula wouldn't translate to IndyCar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you either, Dan, but obviously something is happening in IMSA that is lacking in IndyCar today.
Yeah.
And
their ratings aren't better. They just announced today, they're going to have 80 hours of programming on Peacock. There's a couple of races that are shown live, right? 24 Hours of Daytona will be shown live in portions of it. Petit Le Mans will be shown live in portions of it. But they're not getting the TV exposure that IndyCar is getting. So
it has to go to
because
R&D.
we always say this, right? We always say, oh, the TV ratings are bad. And, as soon as the TV ratings are better, more people will come. TV ratings in IMSA can't be better than IndyCar.
Yeah.
They just can't.
Yeah. I wonder if the formula just translates better to, what they're putting on the road, and not from a horsepower and all that,
No
but
doubt.
it's got to translate into what their vision is for technology and where they're going with their engines. And obviously everything's going to electrification, it seems, throughout this, the country and the world. So, I don't have an answer, but it's very interesting that IMSA is pulling in all these manufacturers and almost did it under the radar. I know it's been covered, but it's almost under the radar. And it's going to be exciting to watch, right? I think I saw a Twitter post the other day and it said, which of the 3 types of cars would you want to drive, right? It was an Indy car, it was the LMDH car, and it was something else. I don't remember what something else was. but I had to think about it. And being an IndyCar fan, to think about which one would you rather
Yeah.
just get to drive a little bit, I think you I actually went towards IMSA and that in the car because I was like, it's new, the technology's there, they're very sexy, and it's it's growing in popularity for sure.
Yeah. I agree with you. If I had seen that poll, I would have checked IMSA.
Yeah,
I would have checked LMDH. And we're IndyCar fans, right? We
I
do an
know.
IndyCar podcast for God's
I
sake,
know,
right?
that's scary.
Yeah.
When I had to
Now,
stop and think about that, I was like, "Okay, how many others are thinking that way?"
right.
It's gotta be.
Oh
We
yeah.
keep bashing on this
Hmm.
chassis, but it's gotta go.
It's got to go.
It's
It's
gotta
got to
go,
go.
and
I can
I
deal with
think
just two engine manufacturers. That chassis got to go.
it's gotta go, yeah.
It's got to go. I will say this before anybody responds, but it isn't an apples to apples comparison. I understand that IMSA and LMDH, or in this LMDH category, many of these manufacturers are likely interested in this series and being able to bring this to the track because it gives them an international footprint. There is
Mhm.
now, with these changes, commonality between IMSA, which is our series, US based, along with the WEC series, or the WEC series, which is, if you watch 24 Hours of Le Mans, that's the series that races at Le Mans. So there are some commonalities between the two series in terms of classes and being able to put those cars on track. So it is likely that somebody like, and we'll just pick on BMW for a second, but somebody like BMW is interested in this because they're a global manufacturer.
Mhm.
So they want to be able to showcase their technology and their name and their branding in the United States, as well as in
Yeah.
in France and
Yeah, they're
wherever
all
else that they.
global. Every
Yeah,
single manufacturer you're talking about is
sure.
global. So,
Yep.
I think, you might have just hit the nail on the head with that
Could
statement
be.
there. If there's commonality between what's going on with WEC and the Le Mans series, and to me, it becomes a no-brainer, right? We're in this series. We've got international presence. We don't have to do a whole lot from a technology standpoint to make it ready for IMSA, right? And
Hmm.
so you adopt that. So that I like where you're going there, and I think that could be the main reason of why these manufacturers have decided to join the LMDH
I I think it's part of it.
program.
I don't think it's main. I think the main reason is because there is development, right? They're able to use their in-house R&D. They're able to take some things and test those on track and be able to translate those easier to the road.
Mhm.
I saw that Acura, that Michael Shank Acura, leave the garage area on battery, and it was the
Oh,
coolest thing in the world. And I'd have never watched Formula E. I've never watched Extreme E. I'm not saying I'll never watch them. I have no interest in watching them, but that thing put goosebumps on me, on my back when I saw
interesting.
that. It started up and then it rolled out, dead silent.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
missed that.
and it was so cool. Well, we're gonna
Was it
see
coming
it.
out of
We're
their,
gonna see it one way or
facility,
another.
or was it over at the
Out of the
track somewhere?
garage area at Daytona during
Inter
testing a couple weeks
Okay,
ago.
that just happened a few weeks ago. Yeah, everything's going there. We're gonna,
We
see it
have it. We have
happen.
one in our garage. I keep telling you, I'm
I
I'm
know you do.
I'm a
You're
I'm a convert.
you're very, proud of how little gas you use these
Yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is, I'm a little jealous, honestly,
With the
'cause,
cold now, though, I think we're gonna have to put gas in it in probably in the next few days.
well, once a month isn't too bad.
No, we put gas in it October 30th.
That's a little crazy.
Wendy's
Are we
my
December
my bride is
19th?
trying to get to December 30th,
Oh my goodness.
and I'm driving
Oh,
it. I drove it all day today, so she's so it's definitely gonna need gas here in the next few
yeah.
days. But I think the big stumbling point here is development, because when you look at the heyday of Champ Car, it was Honda, Chevy, Toyota, Ford,
Mhm.
and they were developing. And I'm not saying I'm advocating three engines a car every weekend testing, like Max Pappas told us, right? That
Yeah.
once he left the track, he was testing all week, and it was multiple engines. And
Mhm.
I'm not advocating that. But I'm advocating a little bit of margin to give these manufacturers an opportunity to stretch their legs a bit.
I
And I
miss this is going to sound corny. I miss the days of wondering if the engine's going to blow.
yeah, if it's gonna
Like your
make it.
favorite guy's
Mhm.
leading, they're leading by a ton, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, just let that engine hold on. Let that. It was
Hmm.
common back then.
Yeah.
You don't see it at all anymore. There's
Nope.
hardly any.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Um, and that's
And I
fine too.
think,
I mean,
but
but
the
yeah,
question
it
to
was
me
always good,
then,
exciting.
what's
Hmm.
the consumer perception, right? If you're not doing that, you're not pushing the envelope. Is the perception is
It's spec.
it's spec, it's not advancing in technology, therefore I'm bored? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Tim, it's very possible that when we go to the 24 hours of Daytona, that an LMDH car is not going to win this thing.
Yeah, anything's possible,
It's very
right?
possible because it's still very much in development. These are brand new cars. I just read an article today that said BMW is just finishing up the completion of their second car
Yeah.
and that
Well,
it's been a challenge for them. So, but they have
and
managed to
doesn't that
do it.
make you want to watch more?
It does. It does. Does for me, but I'm
Does for
a
me too.
fan. I'm a motorsports fan. So for me, it means something different. So I talked a little bit about it. It's a bit of a marketing exercise, right? It's development. It's a marketing exercise. It gives these manufacturers an opportunity to showcase their brands globally in the meaning United States, everywhere else that they go. So I need to move back to IndyCar marketing. And we talked about 2 weeks ago that IndyCar is making a change in their marketing department.
Mhm.
Um, and I posted something on Twitter, so we're getting to this now, saying publicity for the 500. Isn't that the problem? And
Can you
you
explain?
have no idea where I'm going with this, do
No,
you?
I don't. No.
It I'm not saying we shouldn't promote the Indy 500 at all. I'm saying we should. But I feel like it's kind of all we promote.
Mhm.
And it's the one that needs the least amount of promotion. It's 4.5 million viewers.
It's a great point.
It's a great point. All right. Some of the bigger, sexier races might get a little bit more attention, right? St. Pete, Long Beach. Texas doesn't. Texas barely gets anything.
Mhm.
What about Mid Ohio?
Nothing.
Iowa gets a lot right now, not for the best reasons, but Iowa got a lot last year
They did.
because you're bringing four big name acts
Yep.
to
And
the
two
event,
races. Yep.
right? That
And you're
happen to
bringing
be
a
bookended
grocery
by,
store
yeah, yeah.
to the track too.
But that's the thing, right? So when you look at these ticket prices at Iowa and you're promoting Iowa, are you promoting the race or are you promoting these four concerts? Because it feels like this year they're promoting the four concerts.
Well, it's a little bit of both, right?
A little
It's
bit
a
of both would indicate 50%,
yes, I think it's
right? I don't think it's
50-50 on that one.
50-50 at
But
all.
it could be a good model to bring new fans in to watch some racing, right?
Yeah.
So that's and maybe convert
Yes.
them.
But that's my point exactly. You've already converted the people that are watching the Indy 5. I'm a huge fan of Tony Kornheiser, right? I listen to Tony Kornheiser's podcast all the time. I watch PTI, and if I don't catch PTI, it's on my DVR. I've got the series set to watch. I love Tony Kornheiser. Tony Kornheiser is a 70 something year old man who knows what the Indy 500 is. He couldn't tell you IndyCar, what an IndyCar is versus a Formula One car versus a NASCAR, or he couldn't tell you any other track in the world that IndyCar races at. But he knows the Indy 500 and he knows when it is. So I'm saying
Yep.
IndyCar is going to bolster this marketing budget. Let's peel a little bit back and let's help some of these other. Let's help Texas, right?
Yeah,
Let's help Road America. Let's help some of these other places.
I get it.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, it
It's a
sounds like
series
there's
with 17 races, and it's a diverse series. It's a diverse races nonetheless, and nobody else can talk about that. We've gotten away from showcasing that.
we have, unfortunately.
IndyCar intends to increase the marketing budget. This was some news that they were trying to give, and it's like I have no perspective for that. If you spent $10 this year and you spend $20 next year, it's a 100% increase. I don't have any frame of reference for any of that. My question is though, but why is it that this is finally an initiative now going into the fourth year of Penske ownership? That's for you.
I know. We just had a visitor and the dogs went crazy, so I had to
Oh,
pause
there
for
you
a
go.
minute
Sorry.
there. But I am back.
It's all right.
Um, so a few things. I want to talk about marketing a little bit. So let me talk
Good.
about marketing. I know you had a question for
It's
me.
your thing, right? Your marketing degree, right?
I do have a marketing
There
degree,
you
but
go.
I don't do
University of
marketing
Toledo.
right
Go
now. I'm in
Rockets.
sales. So I and I don't I was watching you talk about marketing a little bit, marketing the series, marketing IndyCar. I was watching Sunday Night Football because my team was playing, right? My team was on. So I was watching that, and there was a Honda commercial, and the Honda commercial had a direct advertisement for IndyCar, proud, um, manufacturer within the IndyCar series. So it was promoted there. I know that's not the series doing it, but I was very surprised to see that because I know we had spoke and we talked about a marketing budget and when to market and when it makes sense to attract new customers, new viewers, whatever it might be. And I think if you're increasing this, like you don't see a lot of IndyCar advertisements within a normal watching of any sports. And so the question becomes, how do you do it when Formula One's on? There's a definitely a different type of viewership that's going on there, a younger viewership, female audience. So do it when that's happening. Um, and then you got to do it during primetime sports, right? Sports people are sports people, or in other series, if there's a NASCAR event or something going on, they've got a pretty big captive audience. So how do you advertise during that as well? So there's a lot of things that could happen on that front. And I'm hoping whoever they bring in from a marketing perspective, they'll be able to look at those markets and go, this is the best time to advertise to get more people watching. The other thing that I thought is pretty important is during
And
the
it's
Indy 500.
important not to focus 100% on the traditional forms of advertising, TV, radio, print, right? We are reaching audiences at a much different level, and especially younger audiences, you have to go through at a much different level.
Mhm.
Your kids, my kids are older than yours. My kids don't watch TV.
Yeah.
You're not going to advertise anything on ESPN and catch my kids. You're not going to advertise anything on ABC and reach my kids. Got to catch
Yeah.
them on
That's,
YouTube,
mhm.
Hulu, you know, Sling or what, all these other things that they watch and the things that they do. That's where you're going to catch
Yeah.
my kids.
But but at the same time, I would say, how do you transfer the 4 million that watch the Indy 500 to the rest of the series? You got to promote the rest of the series during the Indy 500 and not
Hmm.
just the Indy 500 while you're actually watching it. And
Totally.
there's a lot of plugs that can happen in that I think can
Totally agree.
boost some of the viewership around the series. So, um, they had a record number of viewers, which hasn't translated, as we just spoke about, to another manufacturer coming over. But at the same time, if you can boost that over time, uh, it's going to help you with any sort of discussions you're going to have with other OEs, or bringing on a new chassis and working with Delora to develop that quicker. There's a lot of things that can be done to help that.
So all that makes sense. I like where you're going with it. And you're right. You have 4.5 million people watching the Indy 500 that may never tune into something else. Give them a reason to tune into something else,
Hmm.
right? Give them a reason to tune into something else. But again, back to the question: why is this now a thing after 4 years of Penske ownership?
Well, there's been they got to do something different, I think, over the last 4 years, right? I think when he took ownership, it was one of those things where it was during the pandemic hit. I think you're just trying to stay afloat at that point, and you're trying to, you know, feel it out. And now it's go time. And I think there's just been a lot of negativity lately that has really said we got to do something, right? And we got to do something fast. And we sort of missed the boat on this marketing and advertising piece.
Yeah. I think also we're starting to realize this constant cycle, right? News is 24/7, never stops. We're like when you and I hate to say this, right? Because we're not that old, but when you and I were growing up, you didn't catch the news until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
There wasn't a 24-hour cycle of it. You got the paper in the morning, that kind of thing. Where I think we've all become conditioned to this, right? To this notion of I want it now, I want it constant, I want a constant flow of it. And so I think some of that is manifesting itself into, well, what the hell are you doing, IndyCar? What do you guys, this long off season? We haven't seen anybody since September. We haven't, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen anything since September. The only thing we've seen is, well, we're not going to do that. Well, we're not going to do that either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we tried. Right?
Yeah.
And then we got this announcement, and this is our segue, right? Announcement on the upcoming CW series, the 100 Days to Indy. And it wasn't enough. Right?
I know.
It was, it's going to be on CW? What the hell? Why would you put this? CW is in 98% of households. Free.
Yeah.
Right? So the guy that was like, why don't you put it on Peacock? That's your partner already. Peacock's not in 98% of households.
Yeah.
There's zero barrier, right, for somebody to tune into this thing. Drive to Survive, you had to be watching Netflix to catch it.
Yeah.
Right? And you were watching Netflix because you couldn't go anywhere. Everything was closed.
That is true.
Right? So people were swallowing to buy Netflix. So am I being a hypocrite by saying, this is a good thing for this series because it's kind of centered around the Indy 500? No. Because it's still going to give you an opportunity to do the things that I keep saying that we need to do. Promote the series, promote the drivers, and the teams, right? Yeah, and it's funneling itself toward the Indy 500, and that's fine, right? Because that's what's going to make most sense for most people.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the end of the day, you're giving them a broader view. The anticipation, this is my anticipation, right? They didn't ask me, I'm not in charge. If I were doing it, that's how I would see it, right? You got to make sure that all the teams participate. You're going to have some personalities that are better than others, and they're going to have more airtime, right? Elio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan, Joseph Newgarden, right? Scott McLaughlin. Those are the guys you're going to see more out of those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to see footage of Will. Will's great, right? You and I had a great conversation with Will in Detroit. Yeah. He's not the other guy's personality-wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I almost kind of feel like Hinch is going to make a play in here somewhere.
I would hope so. I think it's going to be great for the series. I think
so do I.
You're going to have 6 episodes, is my understanding.
But it has to drive toward exploring more of the series, right? Who they are, what they do, and what makes them unique too. Because there is still uniqueness to IndyCar, right? It's not $150 million per team budget like Formula One is. It's not NASCAR. And let's face it, NASCAR is waned on people. Okay. They're taking down grandstands at places that used to fill them twice a year. Okay. Michigan.
Yep.
Okay. They're rebuilding tracks because the racing is kind of a drag, right?
Yeah. They're doing some cool things with bringing back old tracks, but that's a whole nother topic.
That's another thing that aggravates me.
Yeah. It shouldn't.
It's not moving forward. That's drawing back, like hoping.
It's about history, though. Think about
reaching back,
and history.
thinking you're gonna goose an audience that just doesn't exist anymore. Is all that is.
I don't know.
When was the last time we raced IndyCar raced at Cleveland?
Oh my goodness, 90s?
Probably
98.
Do you really think there's the same level of passion for people to fill Cleveland and still fill Mid Ohio and still come to the Detroit Grand Prix? Nope.
I'm gonna
no.
I
Don't even try.
Say yes.
It's not. I know you do, but it's
I'm
not.
gonna say yes.
Yeah, I know you do, but it's not.
Well, then you whack one and then you put that in. You got to move around. You got to do something different. You got the same 17 races you've had for a long time, except for Iowa. So
you think Roger?
I think you got to move around, and not that it's a carnival, but
then there's no equity.
There's equity in a few. You can't have equity in all.
How do you determine? I mean, the ones that don't have any equity are the ones that are already closed. Phoenix, right? Milwaukee. Cleveland went away, I think, because of some municipality thing. Michigan went away because, right? You had 15 people in the grandstand. It looked ridiculous.
Yeah, you couldn't fill it.
Right? Not that you had to fill it, but, can we get 40,000 people in there? It would make it look better. Yeah. But you weren't. So, That's what I'm saying. So back to the CW.
Oh,
So
yeah.
100 days to Indy. I'm excited. Yes, I am. Am I a hypocrite because it's focusing on the Indy 500? No, because my anticipation is it's gonna surround the series, right? It's
Hmm.
gonna surround the drivers,
Yeah,
funneling themselves
because
into this Indy 500 thing.
yeah, so I think you're going through different. I didn't check the schedule exactly, but you're going through each race prior to, is my understanding, and you're talking and preseason, right? So you're talking to drivers, teams, hopefully owners, everybody that's and really putting a great series together to promote the series as a whole and say this is all the things they do that lead up to the biggest race of the year, we'll call it.
That would be the anticipation, but
And then you
we're
got
gonna
to
get answers to
segue
this,
into
are
the
we
rest of
not?
the season. Go
Are we
ahead.
gonna get answers to this? I feel like we are.
We are going to get answers to this because
Do
we've
you
got
want to
an
tell the
interview
listeners
coming
why?
up.
We
Yeah,
do?
so yeah, we got an interview coming up, and we are going to interview the president of Next Star Media Incorporated, which is Sean Compton. So that is coming
And
up.
he is bringing this 100 Days of Indy to life.
Mm-hmm.
He's an IndyCar fan. He's a supporter of the series. He's been to, we think,
We believe.
dozens of Indy 500s.
Yep.
And so, who better?
And he's a native of Indianapolis, Indiana. So
Yep.
it's going to be exciting. We're going to hear all the
It is.
details about what's going on and what's this series is going to be about.
Yep.
And so tune in to our upcoming shows because he's going to be on and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to go
Yep.
through uh, hopefully a litany of items and just break it down for the IndyCar fans. So the IndyCar fans as a fan base have something exciting that they can look forward to come the 2023 series.
I'm excited. I think that's going to be fun.
I think so too.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really cool to
I think we're going to get
see
some
and
great
know and
insight.
understand. Yeah.
We'll get some answers to what
Taking that one
fans
step
want to
closer,
know.
Tim, to being an insider. We had our press, right? Full press access to the Grand Prix last year. We've got this interview coming.
Yep.
Still fingers crossed for full press access to the Daytona 24 hours. Haven't heard back from them yet, but we're getting there, Tim. Baby
Yep.
steps to being insiders. We used to pride ourselves on not being insiders. I still do to a certain extent.
I know you do. You do like that. Is that still in our intro? I don't even listen to the
No, it's
intro.
not.
Oh, it was taken out. Okay.
Yeah. So a few odds and ends here, and then we'll let everybody go. But the Bus Bros, right? Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden are racing at the 24 Hours of Daytona in an LMP2 program.
Mm-hmm.
Keep
It'd
an
be
eye on
great
that
to see
one.
him on track. It'd
Keep
be
an eye on
fun.
that one. Yeah.
Yep.
American Legion will move up to primary sponsor of Alex Palou's number 10, Delara Honda.
Which
with
we
Chip
covered a little
Ganassi.
bit of that last week,
Yeah,
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And then speaking of the number 10 and Alex Palou, he recently opened up to David Mulcher Lopez about the contract situation last season. He had some few things to say about that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not covering it here today because we wanted to get into this other stuff, particularly the engine stuff, because that was hot. But we're going to catch it in another episode, likely the season preview episode. I'm also giving Tim time to cool off too, because he's still aggravated by the idea that Palou is racing for Ganassi and IndyCar and a reserve driver for McLaren F1.
I know.
Doesn't bother me.
You tell me it happens all the time, and I shouldn't
Cares?
be concerned
Doesn't
about
bother
it.
me. Cares?
Yeah. According to the interview, and I'm not getting into it, but everybody was happy with the situation over at Chip Ganassi with what's going on, but I don't buy it.
Chip had to sign off on it. Says it in the contract.
Well, I'm sure he did.
That's all I got.
Same here.
Be sure to engage with us on social media. All of our links are in the show notes here. We appreciate you tuning in, episode 52, in this long, cold off season, which it is for sure. But we've got some hot stuff coming up here real soon. Like I said, with the interview with Sean Compton to talk in depth, hopefully, about the 100 days of Indy. We're going to ask the questions. He doesn't have to answer. We're going to ask the questions.
Sounds good.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you next time.